Victor Margiotta, and this is The Community Show. Thanks for watching. My guests tonight are Vicki Metz and Susan Salomone. There's a problem in our community that we're going to talk about. You know, I prefer to talk about the good things that are going on. I like the good news, but if we don't get it out there, if it constantly gets swept under the rug, then the problem will never get solved. So my guests tonight are going to talk a little about what they're doing to help the problem. And but I always like to start off with where they're from and you know, how they got involved in what they're doing. It kind of gives that sense of community. And I think community is all about feeling like you belong. It's so important. And this problem, drugs and alcohol, it separates us. It puts us in a world that you know, we really don't want to be in, but it becomes an addiction and it pulls us away from the community. So tonight we're going to talk a little about the problem and hopefully the solution. So thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
All right. So let's talk about where you're from.
Would you like to start, Vicki?
Sure. I'm originally from Croton-on-the-Hudson, and I lost my father and my brother to alcoholism and drug addiction, and that's how I started Run for Recovery. When I first started, I got a group of alcoholics and some people from Al-Anon as well. That's, you know, family of alcoholics and drug addicts that are more affected by drug and alcohol. And they helped me form a running group. And I went on from there to raise money to fund, you know, someone that wants to get sober into getting into a sober living. So that's how I started.
Excellent.
We started Drug Crisis in Our Backyard. It's a nonprofit organization back in 2012 after the death of my son, Justin, to a heroin overdose. We struggled for 10 years with his addiction, and after he passed away, we met another family that just lost their son, and they lived in Somers, and we lived in Mayapack. And we got together and started Drug Crisis. And our mission is really to bring awareness of the rampant use of heroin and opiates within our community, and to shed light on it as a brain disease and to offer support to families that are struggling with this disease.
Well, I know for me, you know, it always starts, you know, 14, 15, you're hanging out with friends and, you know, you start off, you have some beer, you know, and it's a party, you loosen up, you're having fun. You know, and then the problem is it's kind of like it's a gateway, you know, and then other stuff comes in. How do you feel that was with your son?
I think my son started, I know he started using pot when he was 16 years old. And pretty much before that he was, he would isolate a lot and he was like socially uncomfortable. And he started smoking at 16 and he didn't get in any trouble in high school, but once he got into college, he started to get in some serious trouble. And he started to take painkillers when he was 23 years old. And we didn't know anything about it at that time. This goes back to about like 2007. Okay, so nobody was talking about it. We didn't know how serious it was. It did come to our attention. And after that, he started using heroin. We told him to stop using the painkillers like they were from a doctor. Stop using them. And and he didn't. Needless to say, he was addicted to them, and which we found out afterwards how addictive they are. And he started using heroin when he was about 25, and from 25 to 29, he struggled to get off of it. And he couldn't. He'd get 5-6 months at a time, but he would relapse. And in the end, he relapsed and he passed away from a heroin overdose. And do you know, we are losing 47,000 people a year. In 2014, we lost 47,000 people to opiate and heroin overdoses in this country.
You know, and that's what it takes. It takes the loss of loved ones. And now you're teaming up with some people that you've met that had the same situation.
Well, and I've teamed up with Vicky.
Okay.
We work together.
All right.
Well,
And how
Run
did you
for
guys
Recovery
meet?
and
Yeah.
Drug Crisis in Our Backyard.
Well, we met through a mutual friend, and then we realized, our organizations are a little bit different, but our mission is the same.
Right.
Our mission is to bring awareness to the community about drugs and alcohol. Because for me, I feel like, alcohol is the gateway drug.
Right.
A lot of people think pot is, but I think alcohol is, because once you drink and you'll lose all your whereabouts, you may try another drug.
Mm-hmm.
You try alcohol, then you go to pot, and then you go to something else. So for me, I always felt like it was the alcohol.
Yeah.
I've asked numerous people how they started, doing anything they've ever done. Like, even if their drug of choice was heroin, well, how did you really start? Well, I started drinking first. Because most kids, if they start using anything at the age of 11 or 12 or 13, it's usually alcohol, because they're able to get their hands on that, So, but our mission is the same, to get out there, to get the community together, to join forces to try to help these kids get it. To get knowledge about what's going on. Like, nobody wants to talk about this.
Yeah.
And it really does. It does start with alcoholism.
Yeah.
It does start with alcohol. It starts with pot. It starts with now synthetics pot. Pot's not the same as it used to be. Now they're adding all this stuff into pot.
Yep.
And now, like Susan said, now it's heroin. Heroin's back. It was big in the 70s. Now it's big now.
Yeah.
Actually, just to take off on what you said about being big in the 70s, we do have a chart that shows the use of heroin in the 70s, a bar chart that we might be able to bring up for you. And just show you that, well, not that one, one before that.
That's fine.
Okay, the chart before that shows that the use of heroin in the 70s and the use of cocaine in the 80s, if you stack those two bars on top of each other, it doesn't even come 3/4 of the way that the heroin usage is now. And also, anybody that was living back then, and I was, knows that the heroin epidemic, it wasn't even an epidemic then, usage of heroin at that time was confined to the inner city and really to the lower economic, socioeconomic status.
Or some stars that we lost, some rock stars.
Exactly.
You only heard about the rock stars or the inner city.
Right, but I was living in the Bronx at the time, and I know that there was heroin, but nobody in where I lived in a middle class area in the Bronx was using it. But they were using it down in the poorest areas in Harlem and they were using it. But it was a totally different demographic that was using it. And so now the demographic that's using it are middle class white suburban kids. And also a lot of older people are using it because they get addicted to the painkillers because the doctors are giving them painkillers for their arthritis or their hips hurt. And so the average age of death in Putnam County is 41 years old. Okay? From opiates. You would think it was going to be 20 or 25. It's 41. All right? So it's not only, there's no face of addiction. It could be anyone you see on the street.
Well, they had a run on, the Journal News has been doing stories about the heroin addiction. A lot of it, these kids that you're talking about had sports injuries.
Right.
And that was a big part of how they got hooked on the painkillers. And then the next step, because the painkillers are so expensive to get a hold of or can't get a hold of, that's why they switched to the heroin.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I actually have a chart on that one also. It is, it shows how right now in 2015, the opiate, the pills are coming down. The deaths from pills. But the death from heroin is going up.
Right.
Well, that's because it's so expensive.
And because
it's so expensive.
And
now
I stop.
Right.
Okay, so
No, go ahead.
Okay, so the I-Stop law, the doctors now have to they have to log into a database every time they prescribe a controlled substance.
Definitely.
A controlled substance. So the doctor shopping is
you
not
can't do
happening
that
anymore. You can't
Well,
do it anymore.
The biggest thing with the doctors is that they get hooked on the sales, and then they're making all that money. I saw where they just had a big bust. The guy was making millions on painkillers, and
It's terrible.
yeah. Not to say it's okay, but there's another addiction with money. These guys, it's just one more way to make money, and the guy couldn't help himself, and he just starts selling them like they were, like it was nothing.
Who, the doctors?
Yeah.
Well, I have another chart up there
Okay.
that talks about how this got started.
Okay.
And I really like to talk about this one because these are bar charts that go up like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important that you understand how this got started.
Yep.
In 1996, Purdue Pharma patented OxyContin.
Okay.
Okay, and it was oxycodone was a generic painkiller on the market.
Yes.
Purdue Pharma came out in 1996 with OxyContin, and they did a marketing campaign from 1996 to 2001. They spent upwards of $120 million marketing to doctors that this painkiller was not addictive or not as addictive as other painkillers on the market. And if you would lay the chart that I just had up there with the chart that shows the rise in opiate deaths from 1996 to 2001, they correspond with each other. And in 2007, Purdue Pharma pleaded guilty to mislabeling OxyContin as a non-addictive drug. They paid $634 million in fines, which is nothing.
Yeah.
Compared to what they made.
Right, because I just saw that they were on Forbes' newest billion-dollar list. So it really, that's how it got started, and it's really sickening.
I know. Well, the problem is, too, that we're not going to be able to get rid of beer or wine or liquor. These are things that normal people can handle, you know what I mean? And yes, there is a big epidemic with alcoholics also, but it's, the death rate isn't as staggering as these drugs that they're dealing with. But it's something that we have to deal with in society. So what are some of the ways we can solve this problem as far as educating people?
What do you think, Vic?
I think it's education, and I think parents really do have to talk to their children younger.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought, that I would wait to talk to my daughter when she was in high school. That's way too late.
Yeah.
We're talking 5th, 6th grade.
Yeah.
You have to start introducing it,
Mm-hmm.
and just by little.
Yeah.
Because kids have to know before they get into 8th grade. That's when kids start smoking weed. Now it's weed.
Yeah.
That's what they call it now, weed. They start smoking weed in 8th grade. My daughter came home telling me,
Yeah.
so-and-so smokes weed. By the time she was a senior, she's like, everybody does it.
Right.
Everybody does it. It's
Well,
it's like common.
Yeah.
And I hate that. I hate that it's a common thing.
And that saying has been used forever. Well, everybody does.
Yeah.
Well, if everybody jumped off the bridge, would you join them? But
I use that analogy, but it doesn't work.
doesn't
No,
work.
it doesn't.
Part of the problem is educating the parents
The
as
parents,
well. The parents
exactly.
really need to be educated. And parents can't say it's only pot.
Yeah.
Or it's only drinking.
Yeah.
If they're underage drinking, it's dangerous.
Illegal. It's illegal.
And illegal, yeah.
And illegal. And Victor, do you know if someone uses drugs or alcohol before the age of 21, because you're dealing with a developing brain, there's a 15 times more likely chance that child will get addicted to the substance than if they wait till after they're 21, because that whole period in their teenage years,
Yeah.
their brain is developing. And so if we could just stop them till
Yeah.
they're 21, 22,
At least.
23,
Yep.
then they have a better chance of being able to be used recreationally.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not for this legalization of marijuana either. I don't think it's a good idea. For medicinal purposes, maybe, but like you said, it's going to get in the hands of these kids, and the kids, the developing brain part, they've already done studies that it's going to mess up their brain development. And, it's just sad. But what's the underlying factor? The almighty dollar, just like that drug company. It was all about money. They don't care about people. you know, and that's why the community has to step in and talk to, you know, a community is not buildings, it's not the streets, it's not some statue they put up, it's people. And without the people, then it's not going to mean anything. So what we have to do is come together as a community and, like we're doing right now, talk about it, get it out in the open. Don't just keep sweeping it under the rug, you know. So what has New York done about this epidemic?
In 2014, June 2014, Governor Cuomo signed a number of bills into law and he came out and he said that the first step in is admitting that we have a problem.
Right.
Now that is, that's right out of the 12-step program.
But that's huge because that's where the biggest problem was lying with that. Nobody wanted to admit that there was a problem in their community at all.
Right.
Nobody.
No.
I mean, we tried to get into a couple of schools and they didn't want us
Right.
because they didn't want to admit there was a drug problem in their school.
Right. So for him to come out and say it was quite a powerful speech. Okay. And that's how we started. The first step is to admit that we have a problem with heroin in New York State. And from there, he started a website called combatheroin.newyork.gov.
All right.
And he also started a work-study program between insurance companies, parents, doctors, and many of the people up in OASIS, which is the Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse, and that regulates everything that happens with treatment and everything having to do with drugs and alcohol in New York State is regulated by that agency. And so I happened to have been on that panel of people. It was a lot of people. And we met every other month to talk about ways that we can make treatment better, ways to make it more accessible for parents and children, because the parents are out of the loop here. You know, like they're not allowed to talk to anyone if the kid is over 18 years old. And for a parent, it's terrifying. I went through it with my son.
Yeah.
Nobody would get on the phone with us. Your son has to call.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. My son is not in his right mind.
You can't even. You probably couldn't even call to get him into rehab.
No, he had to call.
They don't let you call.
So New York State is now. Right now, they have. They just put something on called the Kitchen Table Toolkit, which is a way for parents to talk to their kids. It's a video, and there's a guideline, so parents actually could go on the website and find the Kitchen Table Toolkit and presents it to their child. And it's interviews with people that have struggled with addiction, parents that have dealt with addiction in their family, people that are in recovery now. And it's a very, very good website. So they're trying. At least New York State is trying. And a lot of the other states in the area are also, Massachusetts and Vermont, they're trying to make some headway against this.
Yeah. Well, I've also read that Vermont is having a very big problem, huge, and it's all middle class, white kids.
I think it's all across the country.
Yeah, right now.
I really do. It's all across the country.
It is.
Because I have friends in California, they say the same thing. It really is across the country.
Now, I had Father Vincent on, and I've had Father Higgins on, and we discussed the importance of going back to church, you know, having a religion, having faith. I think, you know, this is just me, but I would like to inject that part. I mean, it's if you don't have faith, if you don't have some kind of belief, you know, you're just doing drugs and you're just going out of your mind, you know. And even if you do have a chance to come back out of it, at least it gives you something to believe in, you know, something to look forward to. Heaven for me. I'd like to mention that my mom just passed, and
Sorry for your loss.
you know, the biggest comfort is the fact that she's going to be in heaven, you know, and then that belief is strong, you know. And any trouble that I've gotten into, you know, always in the back of my mind prayed, you know, said to myself, okay, I'm going to get through this, you know. There is a heaven, and the struggles, you know, that we go through, it's all for a reason. You know?
Right, I say that about my son all the time.
Okay.
And that's why I bring his picture with me, because I know he's here with me.
Yes.
My son has guided me. My organization, this organization has been guided by my son. There's no question about it. I was a teacher. Okay, I had nothing to do with drugs before I went through this with him and he died. So I'm strongly believe that his death, there was a purpose.
Sure.
and that was to bring awareness about this terrible disease to families that haven't lost their kids yet.
Yes.
And we have support groups for families
Okay.
to come. I have on my website, I have a listing of the support groups. We
Excellent.
have 4 different locations,
Good.
and we meet twice a month. And parents come, and we talk, and we just talk. It's just some
That's
place for them
huge.
to talk.
Yeah. You know, you have 12-step programs, you have all kinds of programs. You know, there should be a parenting program, just places
Oh,
like
definitely.
that for people to go and talk and discuss what, you know, the problems that they have. How do you get your kid to eat his peas, or how do you get him to do his homework, or how do you get him off the, you know, the video games, or, you know, and it's all strategies. It's all ways to deal with the same problem. It's like, you know, parenting. You know, there are plenty of guidelines that parents, you know, it's not just do it your own way. I mean, it's so important that they brush their teeth. There's a commercial on now just about brushing their teeth, you know, and in the long run, dental hygiene is huge. It affects your whole health, you know, and, you know, these are all just small things that, but it comes down to education, and I believe that, you know, education is so important. It's funny, you drive by a library. I mean, could you imagine if you read every book that was in the library? It would be,
That'd be great.
it'd be amazing. And now we have the internet, and there's so much
Nobody
stuff.
goes in the library now.
Yeah. But it's all on the internet. All you got to
Exactly.
do is press a button, and you can get any book you want. It's that desire to learn, to want to know more, you know, instead of just, you know, it's a shame because parenting is so hard, and a lot of times you do put them in front of a TV just to, you know, to get a break. And I think that's kind of the problem too. It starts with just, you know, putting them in front of something and just letting them, you know, veg out a little bit, you know.
Well, one of the things that I was, that Susan and I were talking about, we talked about it a while ago, probably about a year and a half ago, is that we wanted to bring, we have an annual race that
Yeah.
we do in FDR Park for Recovery Month, which is September. We usually have it around the 25th, 26th, that weekend on a Saturday. And it's to, you know, bring awareness and prevention and recovery to the community. But we wanted to bring it into schools and get the kids involved and bring the kids into running and to fundraise for, you know, with us.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that we wanted to do. And what I've done in the past was I've gone into St. Christopher's Inn, which is a rehab for men.
Yes.
And I went up there, I don't know, for like 6 months, and I trained the guys up there. And not the last race that we had, the race before that, about 12 guys came and ran the race with us that were in recovery that never ran before. And it was awesome. It was great. They
they
loved
loved
it.
it.
They
Yeah.
won medals.
They loved it.
I've had like 4 or 5 guys on Facebook with me that are in different parts of the country that stay in contact with me. You know that some of them still stay in shape, some of them still run.
Yeah.
And right now I'm working on trying to get into a women's rehab. Walter Hovering, it's Walter Hovering, right? In Cold Spring. Garrison. I'm working into getting maybe into their facility to do a running group there, or an exercise group. I feel like not that it's going to change an alcoholic or drug addict's perspective, but it's going to give them an outlet, some kind of outlet to help them feel better about who they are.
Okay.
And that's what they need. They need to change the way they feel. And you know what? We know that exercise releases endorphins in the brain.
Yes.
And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a high. They're looking to feel different.
Yeah.
But exercise can do that. So that certainly is one way that
Big way, yeah.
to help treat people that are already using and trying to get clean. And it certainly is a great way to prevent use of drugs by allowing them to get, or anyone, not only kids, but everyone, to get high in another way than not ingesting something to change the way they feel.
But that's a big problem in our society too. We all just want to take a pill and cure
To
our
feel better,
problems. Yeah,
right.
to feel better, or to lose weight, or to take supplements to get muscular, or
Just not to
stuff like
feel.
that. Yeah,
Like not to
or
be here, not
even,
to feel.
yeah.
You know what? I think that starts from, I think you've hit the nail on the head with that, Victor, because this is such a societal problem. This is so much bigger than us, okay?
Oh, yeah.
This has to do with giving your kid Tylenol when he's 3 because he has a fever.
Yeah.
That's what Tylenol only treats the symptom. It's only going to bring the fever down. It's not going to cure whatever your kid has.
Right.
So from when they're that young, we're medicating them
Sure.
to feel different.
Yep.
And so what do they think when they're 10, 11, 12? What do we expect them to think? That a pill or something that they ingest is going to make them better.
Even a cookie.
Yeah.
You stub your toe or your knee, you give a
Yeah,
kid a
yeah,
cookie,
yeah.
you know,
Yes,
to make
exactly,
them feel
too.
better, or
It's-
you give them a toy when they're crying. I mean, it's always fulfilling them when they feel bad. You know, instead of just sitting through a feeling.
Yeah.
And then being okay with it.
Right.
You know, and then it results into wanting more,
Yeah.
more.
You know, community is all about people, and this has brought you together with some people. Tell us about the camaraderie you've had with some of the people that are dealing with the same issue you are.
Well, we have a Facebook page. It's a closed group,
Yeah.
and we have about 1,200 members on
Yeah.
it now. And people just can go on and post anytime they want. And we
Yeah.
get a lot of people who post about what's happening with their son or daughter or child right now. Like, it's amazing some of the things that pop up on there, right, Vicki?
And even kids will come on that are in recovery.
Yeah.
They're like in their early 20s, and they'll be like, I'm in recovery for like a year,
Yeah.
and this has happened, and this has happened,
Yeah.
and this is a picture of me then, and this is a picture of me
Right.
now. You wouldn't believe the difference. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's amazing. And also the parents get comfort.
From
Knowing
that.
that they're not alone.
Yeah.
Just knowing
That's
that they're not
huge.
alone.
Yep.
And then just someone else reaching out and just
Yeah.
commenting and saying, oh my God, I know where you're at,
Yep.
or how you feel, or you're not alone.
And they come on and they ask questions like, has anybody tried this rehab? And a lot of people
Right.
come on and respond to that. And you know, we started this group, Victor, because when we were going through this, we did not hear anything about, we thought we were the only
Yeah.
people in the world that had a son that was using heroin. And after we came out publicly in a newspaper article. I wrote the article.
Okay.
And we got so many calls. People were calling us and saying,
Yeah.
I'm going through the same thing in my house. I'm
Yeah.
going through the same thing in my
Yeah.
house. And, you know, it's unfortunate. I feel like if they were talking about it then, maybe my son would not be dead.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I really condone you for doing that, because you know it's very. I have people, you know, in my family that were heroin addicts, and it's embarrassing. Like, people are embarrassed
Yeah.
about this, about someone that
Well,
on
that's a
heroin.
big part of why they don't talk about it.
Yeah, and it's not embarrassing. It's an addiction. It's
Yeah.
it's a disease.
It's a disease.
There's no reason to be embarrassed about a disease, ever, no matter what disease it is. And that's what people have to know. This is a disease,
Yeah.
and this is what happens when you have a disease,
Yeah.
and you have to do something about it.
Right.
So we're just here to pass along the information to say
Yeah.
we have to do something about this disease,
Well,
which is
there is
killing people.
a helpline, right? A hotline to call.
Yeah, I have the New York State hotline
Okay.
on our website.
Yep.
Our website is not the same as our Facebook page,
Yeah.
but we have a website and a Facebook page.
Yep.
And I highly recommend combatheroin.newyork.gov. I think it's a great website.
Right.
And they have a hotline also. I might have the same hotline as I
Yeah.
might have the federal hotline on mine. I'm not
Right.
sure. But that's someplace they could go. They could also comment on my website. If they contact me, I will contact them. I will call them.
Okay.
So we answer phone calls. Anybody that calls us,
Yeah.
we pick up the phone whenever it is.
Yep.
And we have a lot of resources. We know people all over, the country that know people that go into different rehabs in different places that we refer people to.
Okay.
It's not just it's not just in New York. We can,
Okay.
We could
Send
go to
them other
Florida.
places.
We could go to
Okay.
California.
Right.
We have resources in other areas.